Hey, Austex here. So I don't really have a script for this video because it's a little bit spontaneous, but it's something that's dear to me that I wanted to share. So just for a little bit of context before we go into this, when Overwatch first came out, I was really interested in the game, right? And I was consuming a lot of content, right? And my favorite player at the time was IDDQD, right? He was a McCree main, nowadays Cassidy. And he's actually the main inspiration why I wanted to start playing Hitscan and why that was my main role and why I hit GM with Hitscan back in the day when I still actively played. And I even got to meet him, right? So I was flown out to BlizzCon, I think it was 2018, and I actually managed to meet him and take a picture with him, which was super duper exciting. And back then, when I was thinking of creating this channel and I was thinking of kind of the name that I wanted to use, I actually used his name as inspiration, right? The reason why my name starts with an I and is like the way it is because I wanted it to be kind of similar to IDDQD's name, right? So that's for the context, right? Now, the thing is that when you work as a coach, everything is nuanced, right? There's no real general right or wrong. Everything that you say kind of depends on the situation. You look at a particular team fight, you take into account the history of the player and his habits and kind of what he needs to work on, and then you give him advice based on that, right? But what ends up happening sometimes is that people take snippets of that, right? Or they take some video and they just take a snippet, or they summarize it, they paraphrase it a little bit, and then they go to a streamer and they ask them, hey, iStuck said this, what is your take, right? And usually that doesn't really bother me. Sometimes the streamer says, yeah, he's right. Sometimes the streamer says, I'm not sure if I agree with that, right? But this time it's a little bit different because it's IDDQD, I was a huge I still am, I don't, I hold no ill intent towards him, because I don't think anyone is at fault here, right? This is really just something that I kind of wanted to vent about a little bit. So I opened Twitter because I wanted to share my most recent video, and I got a notification that someone posted a Twitch clip of IDDQD's stream, and basically in the clip, I'm probably going to play it here.
That has to be the dumbest fucking take I've ever heard, all right? That has to be some of the stupidest shit I've ever heard. High ground is everything in this game. Literally everything. Everything. And that's coming from a DPS player, all right? That's just the way it is. I'm sorry, I'm going to be completely honest there. It's just not a good thing to say. I mean, maybe it worked for the person that he was talking to, but like, if anything, if you think about the dimensions, right? If you have a high ground position, if anything, you're making it easier, right? You're making it way easier. You have to be standing directly above them, and yeah, that's gonna be complicated. But when I say abuse high ground, I'm not saying that you should directly tip over the edge and look straight down on someone. What I'm saying is it gives you an overview of what's actually going on in the fight, and it gives you a better perspective on where the enemy team is versus where your team is. High ground is king in this.
So you basically said that my take on high ground, I think it was related to me saying that high ground has a negative impact on aim because you are no longer at the same height as your opponent, which means that instead of just aiming on one horizontal plane, you need to kind of adapt up and down as well, depending on how the enemies move, right? That was my argument. And he said that high ground is everything, and high ground is really important, right? And obviously high ground is very important, right? In my opinion, high ground is more of a macro concept that a team as a whole needs to think about, whereas for an individual player going on high ground, is a very nuanced decision because it depends on a lot of different factors, right? For example, if you go on high ground, but it ends up splitting you extremely from your team, and you're somewhere behind the enemy team, and your healers can't heal you, and you play against a dive comp, and you just get dove. Maybe high ground isn't the safest play there, So again, there's a lot of nuance, but the problem is that when my advice gets shared, that nuance gets lost, right? It's just a very, very small snippet. I responded to the person on Twitter, and I basically told them, it's kind of like, saying, wait, this person said that, they shouldn't eat nuts. Nuts are so healthy. They have all these healthy fats and whatever, not taking into account that the person has a nut allergy. And it's kind of the same thing here, where if I have a coaching session, there are certain situations where taking high ground just wasn't necessary, or it just brought with it, again, its nuance. Every single thing. This is the most important lesson that I can give to people, right? There are no absolutes in this world, right? I mean, okay, there are some absolutes, okay, but hopefully you're wise enough to know what those absolutes are. But when we look at like a video game, there are no absolutes, right? Everything has a pro, everything has a con. Everything needs to be kind of taken into consideration on a case-by-case basis. And when that nuance gets lost, it's really frustrating for me, right? Like, imagine you've been looking up to this player for years, right? He's the main inspiration. You even do what you do. And then you need to listen because, someone shared, your advice out of context. You need to listen to them, basically calling you a dumb fuck. I mean, he didn't literally do that, but that's kind of how I feel when I listen to that, and there's no real chance to like defend yourself. I can't go there and I can explain to him how I honestly don't even know like what it's referring to, right? Like, when did I give that advice? What was the context of that specific team fight or that video that I gave that advice to? So yeah, I don't know. It's very frustrating for me, and I'm just a person as well, right? Obviously, you might be thinking this is like kind of whiny and like, oh my god, just chill. But I don't know. This time, it kind of hit me. It's like a little bit frustrating if some random YouTuber or some random nerd on Reddit says something dumb about me. Like, it's okay. I'm happy in life. I've reached a point where that doesn't really matter to me. But it's really heart crushing that like after doing this for 7 years, you need to listen to the person that like inspired you, right? To say those things. Like that's honestly like that's very hurtful. And especially I don't know. Like, it's very difficult to kind of talk about these things. So I don't want to talk about it much more, but I guess my hope and the thing that I ask of you, right? Anyone who's watching my videos, anyone that I've ever coached, right? I'm more than happy if you want to get a second opinion on the advice, right? If you want to ask someone else that you trust, like, hey, he said this, but I'm not super sure I understand, or maybe, I'm having reservations about it. That's perfectly fine, right? But please try to provide some context, or if something confuses you, right? If you're like unsure about something, my Discord is right there, right? I'm not some alien, that can't be reached without some secret, Area 51 transponder. You can just send me a message, and I can elaborate, So for that, that's basically all I wanted to say. Again, everything has nuance, everything has pros and cons. And again, I have no ill will towards IDDQD because I'm 100% sure that, honestly, he just didn't have all of the context, and he's on stream and he's kind of talking about it. This is more so to, just in general, not just for me, but for everyone. Every single time you hear an opinion and, you want someone else's opinion on that opinion, please provide context, and please reach out to the person who shared that initial opinion. If something confuses you or you just want to learn more. Anyways, again, I usually make scripted videos where I just read off some text, so this is not very, not my forte, I guess. So I don't know, I'm just gonna do my usual outro. My name is Stux, and I'd like to thank you for listening.